Welcome to the first episode in a week. It's been a long time coming. We have had a busy week, several things going on. Mr. Bragg has been a busy man. I have
Busy,
been a busy man.
busy man.
We are here. It is late night. We are here to talk about some college football. I'm excited. A lot of things happened. A lot of things didn't happen. A lot of things almost happened. So, and the headline of the week, I'll just go ahead and say it. I know this is talking about week 6. Kansas is hosting College Game Day. The world wins. The world wins. They host College Game Day. Anyway, so we'll get into it. Week 5 was another. College football just keeps on giving. It's like, week in, week out. We preach it every week. It's the same thing every week. There's nothing else you can really say about it. We'll break down the scores first, and then we'll break down the AP poll, and then we'll give you our poll, and then we'll go into performers of the week.
Right.
So I'm trying to pull up the top 25 scores from last weekend. Being a little slow tonight. Week 5. We had a lot of top 25 games last week, as we talked about last week.
Yeah.
But Thursday night started off. Number 19, BYU hosted Utah State. And Utah State actually looked decent, Bragg. Finally, your Utah State Aggies finally looked decent.
New quarterback. I actually watched this game.
Did you?
They got a new quarterback because Logan Bonner done for the year with, I want to say it was some shoulder injury. New quarterback looks decent, though. Cooper Legos. He looks solid.
I don't know. I didn't watch this one. I'm big on the Cougs, but I really don't think the Cougs are as good as we think they are either. But next game was Friday. That game was 38-26 BYU, by the way. The next game was Friday. Now this was an interesting matchup. Washington travels to UCLA, and guess what, Brad? Guess what? The Huskies that you hate so much go down, and you were right about them all along. They were a fraud. This game was not as close, 40-32. It was not as close as 40-32. This game was a blowout. Penix was awful. He's out of the Heisman race.
They got into the fourth quarter where they made it like semi-close. They got it down to 8, and then they just didn't. They couldn't do much.
Right. And Penix, you look at his stat line, you go, wow, he played amazing. No, he didn't. His fourth quarter, he had a big fourth quarter, probably threw for 200 in the fourth quarter. He was not great at all. He looked horrible for 3 quarters. I think UCLA let up a little bit. But UCLA running back, how do you pronounce that? Charbonnet?
Yeah, Charbonnet. From Michigan. Michigan transfer.
124 yards. And I've always been big on DTR. I'm a huge fan of DTR, not Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he's great. For some reason, it seems like he's dropped off the face of the earth at UCLA. But the man, week in, week out, puts up stats, And I just feel like he's a consistent quarterback. I think he should be in the Heisman race. He's a great runner. He's a great thrower. There's not really. Did you see his hurdle from that game?
I didn't know. I wasn't able to catch this one.
It was quite impressive. Go check it out if you get the chance. But he was impressive to say the least. I think they're ranked this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if this Bruins team is out for a little bit of blood because you got two Los Angeles teams. You got Southern California, and you got UCLA, and they're both undefeated. We want to talk about the great USC. But what about UCLA? Let's give them a little bit of love.
We're hating on the Pac-12 kind of crazy for them to be
decent.
They got 3 teams.
You could argue that they're all mid.
Not 5 teams.
Yeah, you could argue that they're all mid, but we don't know till we see. I feel like the Pac-12, if they have a team make the playoff, will get beat pretty handedly by Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, or Georgia, or Michigan.
Yeah,
solely because line of scrimmages. I don't think they can play in the trenches with the.
They've all shown each 5, you could even say 6 with Washington State. They've all had that one game where we're like,
Right.
are they actually good? Like with
Well,
Oregon against Georgia, which I mean, arguably the most acceptable to be like bad in.
right. And now you're seeing wins for the Pac-12 that look great, like Wisconsin. They're 2-3 now. Michigan State, they're 2-3 now. So these wins that we thought were so amazing are kind of landsliding pretty fast.
Right. Yeah.
So like Washington State's win at Wisconsin after Illinois beat the living crap out of them this week.
I think I saw a stat. Wisconsin had like 2 or 3 rushing yards.
They had 3 rushing yards, yeah.
3, yeah.
I think. And I'm just going to throw this out there for the college football playoff. That same Wisconsin team ran for almost 200 yards on Ohio State. Just going to say that. Anyway.
What are you getting at?
Ohio State's defense is not as good as we want to talk about.
Okay.
They never are. But anyway.
Was Illinois at home?
No, it was at Wisconsin.
Oh, I feel like Illinois is like Superman at home. But if it was at Wisconsin, that's crazy.
Yeah. We'll go. I'm trying to find some of the later game. Okay. We'll go to Kansas State. Host Texas Tech. 2 teams coming off huge wins for their programs. And Kansas State looks good again. The offense looks great again. They win 37-28. Adrian Martinez shows he gets out of the Nebraska uniform and he can actually be a good quarterback. And I think this Kansas State team, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they're good enough to run the table, but I wouldn't be surprised if they played Spoiler for a lot of Big 12 or for a few Big 12 teams.
Yeah, they've already done it once.
Right.
And
they were in Oklahoma. Yeah.
What Oklahoma's really made of. But yeah, I could see Kansas State keeping it close with Baylor, keeping it close with Oklahoma State, maybe.
Right. The only reason I think they can play with Oklahoma State is because I don't know how great Oklahoma State's defense is. I think we'll definitely see. But the next game, number 24, Pittsburgh. What are we doing? What are we doing? You have Slovis back. That's it. That's a wrap. You're not going to win the Coastal because you just lost to Georgia Tech. You lost to Georgia Tech. They fired their coach last week. They lost to UCF.
I'm not gonna lie. This is one game I looked over. I didn't even know Georgia Tech beat Pitt until now.
Bro, Pittsburgh was at home, and they lost to Georgia Tech. Let that sink in. Pittsburgh, you're done. You're out of it. You may make the ACC championship.
I didn't have much confidence in Pitt, but I thought like they looked the part to be like a lower 20s.
I thought they were the team out of the Coastal to play Clemson in the ACC title game. I don't know I think it may be North Carolina or Duke now.
It has to be.
North Carolina's offense is going to be the sole reason they can make it out of the Coastal. It's not going to matter because whoever makes it out of the Coastal, even if anybody else besides Clemson makes it out of the Atlantic, they're going to slaughter the Coastal because the Coastal's just not nowhere near the Atlantic. But and moving on to the Atlantic right here, Wake Forest goes to Florida State. They come off a heartbreaking loss to Clemson, and they beat Florida State, who everybody wanted to hype up, and they beat them. It was not really that – I hyped them up. It was not really that close, honestly. It was 10 points, but it wasn't that close. I mean, they handled the game pretty well. And Sam Hartman, say what you want, he's one of the best quarterbacks in America, and he will be a top 3 round pick in the NFL draft. Sam Hartman can play.
Interesting.
But Jordan Travis is also a dog. I'm not trying to dog him at all. But the next one, I got to stop doing this because it's obviously killing teams. I'm sorry if you're watching the podcast. Minnesota gets handled by Purdue. Purdue's a little underrated, but they did not have Ibrahim. So
Yeah, right.
Muhammad,
I noticed that when I was looking at this one. They
I
didn't.
bet it on Ibrahim, and he did not play. So, but and that's probably why they lost the game because what's his face? I can't think of his name. Tanner Morgan would not have thrown the ball that many times had he
Yeah,
been playing, and he would not thrown 3 interceptions. So I mean, and hey, O'Connell can play. He's a great quarterback.
he's really underrated.
He is, and I think he could be a decent NFL quarterback too, because he's such a gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen some guys come from Purdue before. I don't know if you know the man Drew Brees. I don't know if you know that name.
No, it's not Razor though.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Minnesota, the hype is gone. They lost to Purdue. TCU, hello, Horned Frogs. We hear you. 55 points on Oklahoma, 55-24.
I feel like if we go back and watch the preseason like predictions, like our over unders, was I not high on TCU or was I low?
I don't know if you were high, but I was awfully low on TCU.
I don't think I was low. I think I was probably like mid tier to like but I like TCU. Like I like Max Duggan or Dugan, whatever his dude's name is. I like him. Like
He's a player.
He's been there for a while and he's just had the job. Like
Right.
and he's been. I feel like there's another guy who could like step in and take it, but he's always been the stable winner.
TCU's a fun team. I mean, I don't know if you remember back when 7 or 8 years ago, TCU was decent. They were
Back when they had like Josh Doxson.
right, and then they had what was the quarterback's name? Boykin, Trayvon.
Oh yeah.
Trayvon Boykin, maybe.
I think so.
Anyway, TCU's a fun team. I like when they're good. I think the coach. I can't remember what the coach's name is. I think he was a great hire. Offense is rolling, and they played good defense against a really good Oklahoma offense. So,
And Oklahoma's quarterback Gabriel did get hurt.
he did, but the game was far.
No, I'm not saying that would have. I'm just saying maybe it wouldn't have been 30 points.
Right, I agree. But Oklahoma, you're gone. They're out of the playoff contention. I don't think you should give up yet on this program. I just think it's a rebuilding year. It happens. I think you'll be back. Don't worry. You did get embarrassed when people thought you'd be a little pissed off, and you got embarrassed. So I mean, that's a little upsetting, but it just happens. Mississippi State hosts A&M. Brags Aggies get hammered.
I don't like Texas A&M.
You picked them 42-24.
I picked them. Yeah, I did, but I don't like Texas A&M. I don't think
they're good at all.
it's just. I mean, they didn't score in the first half. Mississippi State is not a lockdown defense.
They're not.
They're a shooting type team.
Here's my thing. This is funny. I don't know if you know Mike Leach, the coach for Mississippi. So he was at Washington State. He says stupid stuff all the time. You've heard his stuff, and they asked him he's beat A&M like every year, and they said, why have you had so much success against A&M and Jimbo Fisher? And he said, well, he's done the same thing for the last 30 years. He basically hands me the playbook before we play the game, so I know what he's going to do.
I mean, he wins the game every year. I can't knock it.
I love Mike Leach. I think he's a great coach, and I think. Have you ever heard of the scandal that he did when he was at Oklahoma? Or I think he was at Oklahoma, and they were playing Texas. It's a big rivalry. And speaking of, I think that's coming up this week. But so Texas was like ranked in the top 10, and Oklahoma was bad, and they knew it wasn't going to be close if they didn't. So this man is walking down the field, and he knew they were looking for his playbook because he's a great offensive mind. He drops a opposite playbook of what his is. So like every play is to the other side or lined up to the exactly the same, but on the other side. So they think that they pick it up and they think they've got it. And for the whole first half, they went off that playbook and he dominated them in the first half. Finally, after half, Texas stopped and they wound up winning the game. But it was a funny story.
I like that.
That's good
No,
stuff. But he's a great coach. Will Rogers is playing lights out. Good for him. I like him. I think he's a really good quarterback. Oregon beat Stanford pretty handedly, 45-27.
Nick
Not much to say here.
Cooper's good game.
What?
I did catch this game a little bit.
Really? So what's the big deal on Tanner McPhee? Is he just like a big time quarterback?
There's not a big deal on him.
He's projected in the first round of the NFL draft.
I don't know why. He didn't.
I haven't seen anything out of them. They've played USC, Utah, and Oregon, and he has not played well yet.
He didn't look, and it looked like they just try to run the ball a lot. So I don't really know.
I don't know. I've seen where he's in the top 10 of a lot of people's drafts.
I've never heard of him. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I've heard of him. Like I know he's a Stanford quarterback, but like he's nothing like special to me, at least.
Right. Utah hosts Oregon State. My Beavers get beat handedly. It was close for the first half. The second half got away from them, 42-16. I'm back. I'm gonna say it. I said they had to prove it. Utah is back. Okay, Utah is really good. They're a really good football team. If they can beat USC, they're probably about 4 seed in the playoffs. Borrowing, I don't know. Them and Oklahoma State, it's going to be a toss-up. Yeah. But I think Utah is really good. I wish they would not have lost to Florida. It would make it really interesting right now. But they look really good. Or don't sleep on the Beavers now. They're still pretty good. Utah just made them look very bad. Cam Rising is a good quarterback too. I mean, I think the quarterback play in college football is at a high right now. Penn State, what are we doing here? Northwestern 17-7. How much boring can you get, Penn State?
I saw there was like a combined like 7 or 8 fumbles in this game. I want to say.
I'm sure had to be something.
There was like 4 or 5 of them from Penn State. So
yeah, and Singleton looked great again. But I don't know, Penn State, you're gonna be all right. It's just let's just chalk it up to a sleepy week. I don't know who they got coming up, but they probably got Michigan or somebody coming up. I'd be willing to bet. One of the games of the week, Oklahoma State and Baylor. Oklahoma State survives. A lot of people thought they'd go into Baylor and lose. They beat them 36-25. Without Baylor's third quarter, this game is not close.
No, yeah.
They scored 22 in the third quarter, and they scored 25 in total. So, Oklahoma State, I think their defense is pretty good. Baylor had a good defense, and look what Oklahoma State just did to them. So, that offense is pretty good too.
Right.
I like Oklahoma State, and I hope they're good. I hope they're all we think they are. Kentucky, Ole Miss. Ole Miss wins 22-19, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not how. Ole Miss is into my top 10. I will preview that, but I'm not real high on either of these teams. I know it looks like that's a great win for Ole Miss. Kentucky did not look good. Their offensive line was atrocious.
Yeah, I've been saying this. I don't really like. These are both like just like meh teams.
These are teams that the SEC bias voters are going to put high until they finish the season 8-4. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So, good win for Ole Miss. I hope they can be good. I just don't see it. I see them being good. I don't see them being great. USC host Arizona State, win 42-25. This wasn't close. Caleb Williams looked good again. You'll see in the rankings. I'm kind of worried about USC, not because of this, but I am a little worried about them. I guess this is just kind of going. Okay, Michigan and Iowa. If you watch this game, hats off to you because you're a better man than I am. Iowa has the second worst offense in college football. They are atrocious, like awfully bad. Michigan wins 27-14. Not too sold on this Michigan team either.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be just straight up. I haven't watched the Michigan game all year.
I haven't watched them, but I've seen highlights. I'm not huge on them, and I think the separation between Ohio State and Michigan this year is a large gap, and I think that will be a beatdown of epic proportions when they play at the end of the year. But until then, we'll just wait and see. Ohio State beats Rutgers 49-10. Rutgers actually went up 7-0 in this game, and funny enough,
I saw that.
that's like the first. I can't remember the exact stat, but it was like the first time in a certain amount of years that Rutgers had taken lead on Ohio State.
Yeah, and then they continue to score 3 and then give up 49.
And yeah, Stroud was not that great, but you don't have to be when your running back runs for 205 touchdowns. So,
yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. Great win. I mean, not a great win. Just you did what you're supposed to. You handle business. Alabama beats Arkansas on the road 49-26. They did struggle for a while. Bryce Young goes out hurt, and I forgot what the backup's name is. Fill me in.
Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe.
Looked great. Did you see his run?
I didn't. Well, what'd he do?
I gotta find it for you.
I might
run through some stats while I find this from that game.
Just some notable ones. We had Jahmyr Gibbs finally broke out 200 yards, 2 TDs. Both of those big runs coming in the fourth quarter, the big fourth quarter. Alabama was up 28-7, and then Arkansas just slowly fought back, chipped away, and then Alabama just took off. So
this was a 77-yard run that got tackled inside the 5 by Milroe. Watch this play. Can we get it on the screen? Let's see if it'll lock in.
Go full screen.
Okay, here we go.
Wow.
That's a quarterback.
That looks like Lamar Jackson.
It looked like Lamar Jackson. He's phenomenal. But they don't really, Bryce Young's day to day, I think. He'll be back. He'll be the starter, obviously. There's no contention there. Like Darren said, Jahmyr Gibbs was amazing. Like we've been waiting to see, and he did it. Who's this Prentice guy at receiver? I don't really know.
Kobe Prentice. I want to say. They have a million guys who are just decent. I think he's just one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see a lot from Alabama's receiving corps before I'm willing to buy into some of them guys. Georgia travels to Missouri and scores a last-second touchdown in the last 3 minutes to win the game. I don't – this is back-to-back weeks. I don't know really what to say about it. Don't fret. You're okay, I think. I think you're going to be okay. I don't know. I'm thinking here's how I feel, and tell me if you agree with this. Georgia come off a natty, okay, for the first time in 40 years.
Right.
Their natty wasn't like an Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama last few years natty, where they win one and then there's sort of a hangover, because, they're just rolling in the next season as the champion. Georgia was hyped to get back out there as the national champion. That offense played out of their minds the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And now I think they're coming back down to earth, and I think Stetson Bennett is coming back down to earth, and I really think that's where the problem lies. Another problem is not even Stetson. I don't want to blame this all on Stetson because I think the biggest problem with the offense is the offensive line has been bad, and the running backs are not what they were.
Right.
The passing game is fine. The passing game is what Georgia's passing game always is, year in and year out, and slightly better. I do think they're slightly better. I got to see more out of that offensive line and that running back core before they can, be the favorite to win the national championship. Because I think they're really one-dimensional right now, and that's not normal to say about Georgia, especially with the passing game. It's normal to say one-dimensional with the running game.
I was about to say, if you're going to get, I would say more often than not, it's one-dimensional with the run. They'll do the dink and dunk and then just hand it off for 2-3 downs.
Right. I think that's normal for them to be one-dimensional. But when you start talking about Georgia being one-dimensional with the pass, that's when they become a very beatable team.
Yeah.
And I will say this. Any team with a little bit of offensive rhythm or knowing who they are beats Georgia by 3 touchdowns that game because Missouri kicks 5 field goals. 5.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they got down there was because they threw the ball up and they happened to come up with it.
Yeah.
So Georgia, you got to get going because I said Tennessee can't play with them, but I'm starting to think with the offense that Tennessee has, they can't just play with them. They can beat them.
They definitely can. I would say, but it is in Georgia. The game is home.
Right, and that is the one thing that is.
That's the one thing. That's the one edge I would get to like that, and that's a huge edge.
Right.
That is a huge edge.
It is, but you know how this Tennessee game always is. It's always a little weird. Something stupid always happens in that game, whether it be Nick Chubb tearing his ACL. I mean, I'm not wishing injury, but I'm saying Nick Chubb tore his ACL one year. They threw up the Hail Mary and they called it one year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's stupid stuff happens all the time in that game.
Yeah, it does.
It's stupid. So, Georgia fans, that's the only game you have to worry about.
Literally.
Kentucky. If you
I don't know. I need them to look better than this.
I agree. I think Kentucky can hang around if they play like this. I do. Because Missouri's awful.
They're arguably the worst team in the SEC.
I think they're worse than Vanderbilt. But I think you see it. But here's my problem with Georgia right now. You have to face the fact that you play bad on the road instead of saying, oh, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC. It's hard to win on the road in any conference. You got to face the fact that you played horrible back-to-back weeks instead of falling back on that saying, oh, we'll be fine. Alabama almost lost to Texas. Alabama played in 112-degree heat with 110,000 people yelling down their necks at 11 o'clock in the day. And Texas is not Missouri. I'm sorry.
No, they're not.
Texas would beat Missouri by 40. Kansas State beat Missouri 40-12.
I remember I picked Missouri in that game.
So, Georgia fans, don't fret because you're going to beat the living crap out of Auburn because they're worse than
actually Auburn's the worst team. I forgot. Auburn is.
They beat Missouri though.
They did? Oh, they did by a field goal.
But Auburn's offense is worse than Missouri's somehow. Anyway, the last game we had in the top 25 was Clemson beat NC State 30-20. Great performance by DJ again. I think the offense is coming to their own, and I think it was a little bit of a revenge game for the defense. Leary's stat line looks good, but watching the game, Clemson dominated the game. I mean, it was not a 10-point game, honestly. I mean, it was total domination from the beginning. But with that being said, I do think Wake Forest is better than NC State, and I think we'll see that when they play at the end of the year. We could potentially get a top 10 matchup there because those two teams are not bad. But But I do think that was a great win for Clemson. Uh, they beat top 15 teams back to back weeks,
They
and the
did.
offense looked good back to back weeks. So against a really good NC State defense, and I think that's what you needed to see from them is them to look good against a good defense, and I think they did. And I think that kind of moves them into. And I saw some Barstool guys say it. Clemson probably has the easiest path from here on out to the playoff with them already beating two top 15 teams, and the only two really tests on the schedule are Florida State, which is at Florida State, so that will be tough. But then they get like Syracuse, who is ranked right here. That's at home. So they arguably have the easiest path to the playoff than anybody.
Yeah, I would agree. Just looking at
So
it, it looks real easy.
I still think they probably slip up and lose a stupid game, but I don't think that's enough to knock them completely out because I think they'll go 12-1.
Yeah, I agree.
But that was all the top 25 games. Is there any non-ranked games that we need to go over?
I'll just do a quick little glance.
Auburn and LSU played boring. It was 21-17 LSU. I will say that LSU's offense was embarrassing, for one. Am I crazy to say that?
No, they barely won, didn't they?
Tulane beat Houston. Houston's 2-3 now. Wow.
Oh, Maryland beat Michigan State.
Maryland beat Michigan State pretty handedly, wasn't it?
Yeah, 27-13.
Yeah. I'm trying to see the rest of them here.
Kansas, who somehow is still not ranked, beat Iowa State by a field goal.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think that looks better for Kansas than it being like a shootout because the Kansas defense has looked bad the whole year.
Right.
And the fact that they held, not saying Iowa State is like Ohio State, but they held them to 11 points.
Yeah, that's what I thought was impressive from that win.
That's really good to see. So, and now also Iowa State's kicker did miss 3 field goals.
Well, it's part of it. You gritted out a win. Good job, Kansas. You're now right. They're ranked now.
Good, yeah, they should be. They're 5-0. They should be.
Exactly.
There's only like 7 or another James Madison. We have to start talking about them.
We do.
5-0.
But they cannot win the Sun Belt because it's their first year in the FBS. So they're
so stupid.
That is so stupid.
We can talk about Cincinnati. Cincinnati won by 10 against Tulsa.
Right. Tulane beat Houston, like I just mentioned.
Duke beat UVA.
How bad was that one?
38-17.
Wow. Duke looks a lot better than people are giving them credit for. Illinois goes to Wisconsin and embarrasses them. 34-10. I hear you, Illini. You're 4-1. Don't look now. Don't look now. Illinois is a last-second touchdown away from being 5-0.
Facts. Nebraska pulled one out against Indiana.
Against who? Indiana?
35-21.
Wow, good for
It
them.
was knotted up until the fourth quarter. Texas beat West Virginia by 18.
Sean Tucker is pleased with his 232-yard performance against Wagner.
Colorado moves to 0-5.
Auburn, Robbie Ashford threw for 340 yards. Good for him. Good for Auburn's offense. They did lose. Let me ask you this, Darren. Tell me this.
What's up?
How many passing yards do you think LSU had against Auburn?
150.
Lower.
75.
85 passing yards.
Wow. That's awful.
And you want to know how much they ran for?
Oh, well, I see it now.
Yeah.
A lot.
185. That's not great, but
It's
And
not great, but it's enough to win the game.
it is enough to win the game, especially against a pitiful Auburn team.
Yeah, the
Um,
defense, the LSU defense won them this game.
they did, and the quarterback. I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot more bottom feeder or SEC teams than there usually are. Because I mean, I just feel like Auburn, Missouri, Vandy, LSU, and South Carolina, all five look really bad.
Hmm.
And I'm a little. I mean, I'm not sure about them, but that's really the game I wanted to point out was LSU and Auburn because I had heard that stat about their passing yards, and I want to talk about that. Jaden Daniels, we know he runs the ball, but still.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll get into the AP poll. Does anybody? I mean, do you want to get? I mean, we've already talked about it. LSU is ranked 25th in the AP poll. We'll just run down and we'll talk about it. 24th, Cincinnati. 23rd, Mississippi State. 22, Syracuse. 21, Washington. 20, Kansas State. 19, Kansas. 18, UCLA. 17, TCU. 16, BYU. 15, Wake Forest. 14, North Carolina State. 13, Kentucky. 12, Oregon. 11, Utah. 10, Penn State. 9, Ole Miss. 8, Tennessee. 7, Oklahoma State. 6, USC. 5, Clemson. 4, Michigan. 3, Ohio State. 2, Georgia. Alabama retakes number 1. Okay. Anything you want to point out real quick on the AP poll that you want to talk about?
Just off rip, I feel like I just don't know how LSU is here. LSU does not have a win. That really puts them in they did beat Mississippi State. They did beat Mississippi State. I have to remember that. And now Mississippi State looks a lot better because they beat Arkansas. Or sorry, A&M. Sorry, they beat A&M.
Right, but like we talked about, Florida State beat LSU virtually at LSU, and they're 4-1 as well, losing to a 15th ranked Wake Forest team, and they're behind LSU. That's just weird to me.
Right. Also, Cincinnati, don't really know how they're ranked. What have they done to deserve the ranking over like a Duke, who just
who is 4-1 with a
lost
loss
to a ranked team.
Right.
Cincinnati's loss comes to an unranked team. So
Maryland. Why I mean Maryland's 4-1 with a loss to the number 4 team in the country.
Maryland also. Maryland you could make an argument for.
James Madison is undefeated and
James Madison's undefeated. North Carolina, you can make an argument for. They lost in a 120-point game. Or sorry, they lost to Notre Dame.
They got blew up by Notre Dame.
They didn't get blown out. It was 45-32.
Okay, but it was 45-24 at one point.
You can make an argument for North Carolina. You can.
23 Mississippi State. I like it, but the LSU loss kind of hurts me a little bit. I just think everybody that beats A&M cannot jump up 15 spots.
You could even make an argument for Washington State.
You can. They're 4-1. They lost
came to arguably a close to a top 10 team,
and they had them beat too. So I mean, it's not like they got blown out.
5-0.
Right. Syracuse 22. I don't mind that. 21 Washington. I mean, they don't really have a win anymore, So, I mean, I don't mind them being ranked because they were high before that. But Kansas State 20. I think they should be higher. They're really good to me. I mean, I think they play decent defense, and I think they have a really good offense. Kansas is at 19. Thank God somebody put Kansas in the top 25.
Yeah.
UCLA is finally ranked. They're at 18. It's come to the point where you have to rank every undefeated team because there's 16 of them in the country. And the only one unranked is James Madison.
Which is understandable. They have not played anybody. Well, they did beat App State, but, that's not a great win.
I mean, if we want to talk about how great A&M is, then App State beat A&M. So if we want to compare apples to oranges.
Well, no, A&M, we know. A&M is not ranked. They're receiving 4 votes.
Right, and they're awful.
Like
They're awful.
there's like Tulane is receiving more votes than them.
Right. Anyway, UCLA's at 18. 17 is TCU. Look great. I mean, I'm interested to see this TCU Kansas game this weekend.
I am too. Yeah, should be a shootout.
I hope it's a shootout.
They don't play D. Neither team plays D.
That's the only game I'm watching at 12 o'clock. I don't care if there's a last second thriller. I'm watching the whole TCU Kansas game. Anyway, 16 BYU. I feel like that's a little too high. I don't know. I mean, the Baylor win looks good, but I guess they're about right. They lost to Oregon, so
Yeah.
15 Wake Forest. I think they should be a little bit higher because I honestly think they would beat Kentucky.
I agree. Actually, it's close. It's tight.
It is. I mean, they're all right there together. I don't really care about them. Utah will make their way into the top 10. I told you. What did I just say? I had no idea Penn State was creeping up on Michigan, but I told you they were, and that's who they played this week. I told you that's why they played Northwestern close. I knew somebody was coming up.
Interesting.
But somebody, Michigan or Penn State, will lose this week, and Utah will make their way back into the top 10. What if Kansas wins?
Well, maybe not. I don't think if Michigan loses, they drop out.
I think they do.
It depends. I don't know. It depends on how the game goes.
It depends on the score, but they're at home. You don't lose to Penn State at home in Michigan. You don't. You just don't. And here's my thing. Who is Michigan beat for them to not drop out of the top 10? The only reason they're in the top 5 is because they were in the preseason top 6.
That's true. No, I agree.
So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Ole Miss at 9, they got a big win. That's normal. They jump up 5 spots, whatever. Tennessee at 8, they were idle. Doesn't really matter. Oklahoma State jumps 2 spots to 7. Love it. USC's at 6. I mean, the top 6 doesn't change except Alabama goes to 1, Georgia goes to 2. I honestly think Georgia should have dropped to 3 in the AP poll. But Georgia doesn't play. I mean, Georgia never plays good as the number 1. So it's a blessing in disguise to Georgia.
Right.
But that's all I have to say about the AP poll. You could make an argument for Ohio State to be number 1, but honestly, they haven't played anybody either.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama has the road Texas win and Arkansas now. So, but we're getting into our polls. We'll start at 25. You want to hit us up? Let's go.
Yeah. So my 25, I have them sticking around because they made it interesting with I'm not gonna spoil that. Arkansas. I have Arkansas 25.
Arkansas's 25th.
They have 2 losses. But I think they're too good not to be ranked.
What if I tell you that they're going? What if I told you that they were going to lose the next 4 and they've already lost 2 of those next 4?
Well, then they wouldn't be ranked. But I need to see them still keep losing because this loss is not going to take them out for me.
Right. My thing is there's too many 1-loss and no-loss teams for Arkansas to be ranked. That's how I feel. But go ahead. Or you said Arkansas at 25. I got Mississippi State. They're in there for me. They beat A&M. They're 4-1. They slipped up on the road at LSU. Tough place to play. I'm giving them 25th. The offense looks great. And Mike Leach. That's all you need to know. So that's why they're at 25 for me.
Yeah, I have Mississippi State at 24.
Okay. Yeah. They look great. I don't think they look great. I think they look like a very good team. But Florida State's at 24 for me. This is questionable, yes. But if we want to make a case for LSU, we have to make a case for Florida State. They lost at home to a really good Wake Forest team. That's their only loss. They went practically to LSU and won in week 1 when we didn't know how good they were or if they were going to be awful. So, I mean, I think Florida State deserves to still be ranked. I don't think 1 week should. And they'll get a chance to prove their worth next week when they play Clemson. So, I mean, we'll see. And they play NC State this weekend. That's pretty tough, man. They play Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, that is tough. 23 for me, I have Syracuse here. Syracuse is look good, and then they're undefeated. I mean, they just have to be in here.
Right, they do. 23 for me is Cincinnati. I know you're going to be upset about this, but they are.
Cincinnati at 23.
I couldn't find anyone else to throw in. I guess I could have made a case for Washington State. Probably should have put James Madison. I wanted to put James Madison at 23, but then I was like, well, they wouldn't beat Florida State or Mississippi State. So then I was like, I don't want to move Florida State up 23. So I just got the miss. I just threw Cincinnati in there. They're probably not deserving, but they're there for right now.
Right. My 22, I have Washington here.
I have Washington as well. They slipped up on what I think is a decent UCLA team. Washington will not run the table, and they will lose 2 games.
Interesting. And then I have UCLA at 21.
I have Syracuse at 21.
Interesting.
Syracuse has looked good. They beat a Purdue team that obviously looks better now. So I mean, we'll see. They're unbeaten, so they have to be there. You know.
Okay. And then 20, I have Baylor here.
Wow, 2-loss Baylor.
2-loss Baylor. One of those losses coming to a team I have making the playoff, and then, or at least being top 5. And another team I have making the playoff too. Or wait. Who else did they lose to?
They lost to BYU. Darren said BYU's in the playoff. Y'all heard that?
Oh, no. My fault. Sorry. And that was a full-strength BYU team. So I'll say that much. I think Baylor is still really good, though.
Okay, yeah. I think they're second best team in the – well, I'm not going to say that because there's a lot of uncertainty here.
I think Baylor would beat the brakes off of a Syracuse. I think Baylor would beat the brakes off of Arkansas. You can make a case for Washington. I think high-powered offense, they're a little iffy because they don't have that. But that defense, like if you don't throw them a team like BYU BYU, do we consider them high-powered offense? I would.
Jaron Hall's pretty good. Yeah.
They scored 26 points in a double overtime game. Like, come on now. That's a great defense. So.
Right. Yeah. 20 for me is UCLA. Undefeated, beat Washington pretty handedly. I know the score doesn't indicate. But they are there for right now. They could potentially slip. I don't know who they have next week, but I can tell you. They have Utah, so we will see how good they are.
That'll be a good one.
That will be a good one.
19, I got Kansas State debuting here. I don't want to put them too high because there's still that little shadow of doubt in my mind, but I think they're good. I do think they're good. I do think Adrian Martinez is a Heisman candidate.
Wow.
I do. He's got the wheels, man. He's nice.
That is a shot in the dark.
How?
BYU is number 9.
6 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah. I need to see more in the passing game, though.
Okay. Who's your 19?
BYU. Their one loss is to a good Oregon team, I think, is good to Oregon team. And they beat Baylor. You know, you're 20th. So.
Yeah, true. Okay. My 18 is BYU.
Yeah. My 18 is TCU, debuting this week. Looked amazing against Oklahoma. They put up 668 yards of offense. They are very deserving of 18, probably higher. We will see. I think they're better than Kansas. Hate to spoil the Kansas party. We'll talk about that later in the week, but they're 18 for right now.
Interesting. 17, I have Kansas.
Okay. For obvious reasons, you have to talk about it because we know.
Yeah, they're undefeated. We were ahead of this.
Right. I'm gonna make some folks mad with this one, but this is how I've wanted to do it the whole time. I just couldn't. Kentucky's at 17 for me. Get mad if you want.
I'm like freaked out, but I'm looking at mine. That's not crazy. Like that's not that bad.
I think they would lose to Kansas State.
What are they in the AP?
They're 13th.
Oh yeah. That's not crazy. My fault.
I think they would lose to Kansas State, and that's.
You can make that argument.
Go ahead.
16.
16.
16. I have TCU here.
16, like I just said, Kansas State. They're there.
Interesting. 15. I have Kentucky here.
Right. Yeah. See, my 15. I'm a man of the people, and this ain't Texas no more. I mean, this ain't Kansas no more, baby. 15th. Kansas is 15th. They're undefeated. Let's have fun while they last. They may not win another game. Who cares?
14, I have Wake Forest.
14, Wake. 14 for me is North Carolina State. Lost to Clemson.
Wow.
I feel like what?
That's low, I feel like.
I feel like you have to drop at least 5 spots, and I think they were number 8 in mine. You can't. I mean, to me, if you lose, you have to drop more than 5 spots. That's my.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
I just feel like if you lose to a playoff team, like, yeah, you should drop, but like, I don't feel like that should weigh, like, because that's just 2 different calibers. Like, that's.
Well, yeah, but here's my thing. A lot of people wanted to say that North Carolina State was a playoff team. A lot of people said that North Carolina State would dominate Clemson, and they were way better.
No, I never heard that.
I've heard that plenty.
Yeah, but you're on the Clemson. Of course, you're going to hear it. That's like how they motivate themselves. Is hearing negativity.
Well, true, but I have seen a lot of stuff on Twitter. A lot of people were high on NC State, and that NC State team that I saw, and granted, Clemson is really good, but they were completely dominated, unlike a Wake Forest team that I saw last week. So that's why they're 14th. They're lower than Wake to me.
Interesting. Okay. 13, I have Oregon here.
Me as well.
And then number 12, I have NC State here.
That's where I have Wake Forest.
Okay. So we just have them swapped.
Basically, a lot of ours is just swapped.
I think the reason you're saying that is because Wake Forest held it closer with Clemson, but I think NC State would beat Wake Forest.
I mean, I can see where you – here's why. I think Wake Forest has one of the most explosive offenses in the country. I don't think their defense is great, and I'm not basing it just off the Clemson game. But I think Wake Forest is a lot – their defense showed against a pretty good run game of Florida State that they can hold their own. They were overmatched by the physicality of Clemson. That's why they gave up 51 points. But against teams that are not, like teams that are from 10 to 15 to 16, around there, they can manage the line of scrimmage and they can win a lot of those games. That's why they're number 12 for me. So
that defense is so concerning because you're saying they get outmatched by like a Clemson. They gave up 25 to Vanderbilt.
They did. They did give up 25.
They gave up. Let me just.
36 to Liberty. Okay.
36 to Liberty.
I get your point. I understand. Let's just say it goes off the Clemson game. Now, when they play, I do think there's a 75% chance that NC State wins the game. But right now, let's just put it where it is. Wake Forest got a big time on the road win at Florida State. We'll put them at 12.
All right. Number 11, I have Penn State here.
I have Utah at 11. I knew you wanted to put Utah in the top 10 so bad you couldn't help it.
I just, off of who was looking better, Penn State almost lost it, or they looked bad against Northwestern. Utah looked amazing against that Oregon State team that you love so much. Like,
agreed. They're at 11. I'm not. I mean, Utah.
There's no way you're putting Penn State. Okay, 10. I have Utah.
Right. The only thing that gets Penn State above Utah for me is that Utah still has that Galting loss. But That doesn't stick around for. Please tell. I think Utah. I know Ole Miss is above Utah in mine. They're at 10. Ole Miss is my 10. But I don't know how you rank them any higher than 10, my man.
Ole Miss?
Yeah.
I mean, they're 9. Like,
Oh, okay. I can see that.
one spot higher.
Penn. Yeah, they are. Penn State's number 9 for me. I don't know. They're just a lot of the. We'll see how good those teams are in the next 2 weeks.
So neck and neck though, like.
Oh yeah, I think so too, and I think we'll really see.
Utah is better. I think Utah is better by far.
I think they are too, and I think the cream will rise to the top in a few weeks.
Exactly.
Okay. This is all just projections right now, but go ahead.
Number 9, I have Ole Miss. Number 8, I have Tennessee.
Me as well. They're not moving. They get Alabama this week, right?
I believe so.
No, Texas A&M and Alabama. Tennessee gets LSU. That's right.
Okay. Interesting.
7 for me. We're about to have a lot of disagreements, I think.
No, I don't think we will.
Okay. 7. Go ahead.
I have Michigan.
Wow. Okay. So I don't have Michigan that low, but 7 for me is USC. But I can see where you're going with that. I think these Michigan, Oklahoma State, and USC are all 3 on the outside looking in and are very interchangeable.
I agree.
I'm going USC at 7, though.
I have Michigan 7, and then I have USC at 6.
Okay. Yeah, I have Oklahoma State at 6.
That's interesting. I have Oklahoma State at 5.
I kind of made this.
I like Oklahoma State. I can't lie.
Right. Oklahoma State's at 6. 5 for me is Michigan. That's the biggest problem I have with the AP poll is why is Clemson behind Michigan? I don't care about the other 3, top 3, but why is Michigan in front of Clemson? They haven't beat anybody, and Clemson's won 2 top 15 games, and Michigan struggled with Maryland at home. And not that Maryland's awful. Maryland at home, and they didn't blow out an Iowa team last weekend. So,
right, yeah. And then top 4, I have Clemson at 4.
Right. I have Georgia at 4. Now that's going to turn some heads. I get it. I'm going based off the Georgia that I've seen the past 2 weeks, and I have a feeling that is the Georgia that we're going to get for a while now. Not that bad. I think they'll be better than that. But I think they'll be very vanilla from here on out. And I think they're 4 because of their lack of – their poor play the past 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I have Georgia at 3.
Okay. Yeah, Clemson's at 3 for me just because they're wins.
That's so biased, bro.
Oh, my
between
God.
both of us. No, between both of us.
Oh, it is. It is. That is biased. But, Clemson has better wins. And Georgia's looked bad the past 2 weeks. That's all I went off of.
That's fair. I'm not saying I don't know. If we're going off the past 2 weeks, Clemson has looked way better. But I'm putting Georgia. I just think Georgia looked so strong throughout that first
3 weeks, yeah.
And Clemson had a shaky game against Georgia Tech. If you
They did. They did.
Number 2, I have Ohio State.
I have Ohio State as well, and that means we both have Alabama. I think Ohio State and Alabama are interchangeable. I think here's where it's so, and it doesn't matter because it's going to work itself out. But here's where it's so hard is every team has a hole, and no teams have the same hole right now. And I think that's the weirdest thing. Like Alabama, what are our wide receivers going to be like, The defense is good, but it's not amazing, like it has been in the past. Ohio State is solely defense. Their defense is good. I think it's been good against the opponents they've played, but I don't think it's very good. Clemson has no wide receivers for the most part. They're trying to find some, but they don't have any for the most part. and their secondary is not great. Georgia, their running game's awful. Their offensive line is awful. Michigan haven't played anybody, and I think they're very overrated on both sides of the ball, offense especially. Michigan's always going to have a good defense, but their offense is very overrated. Oklahoma State, it's
I
not
think
crazy.
that defense lapses is the only thing. Like they I feel like every game that we've covered with Oklahoma State, they go through one quarter where they just give up way too many points. Like I remember early against Central Michigan, they gave up like 20 something in the fourth quarter.
Right.
This game, they gave up 22 in the third quarter against a Baylor offense that's just not that good to be scoring 20 points in a quarter.
I agree.
You know?
And
So
that's what we're talking
about. That's my one worry.
Right. And I think that they don't have a lot of depth at that position on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's the problem. But I mean that comes with time. And like we talked about, I just think here's how the polls are working for me. I'm going based off of how much better teams are getting every week.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has progressed more in the nation than Clemson. I mean, they've gotten from that first half against Georgia Tech to this NC State game, that's a totally different team.
I would agree.
That first half Georgia Tech team is ranked 15th right now. That team that beat NC State is a top 4 team in the country. But Georgia, through the top 3 games, is the number 1 team in the country. Through the last 2.
And I feel like the thing about it is the thing that makes Clemson look so much better is because they're playing this good competition. So it's
Right.
a lot more credible, you know. Like I'm
is.
not saying if you put a number 8 next to Missouri, like you're gonna think, oh, Georgia, that's a good win. But it's like, and I that's like obviously that's the point of having rankings. You're playing good teams.
Right.
And I think Clemson's been like ready. They've been well prepared, so they look a lot better. Not saying they haven't progressed. I'm saying they have progressed, but they just it looks a lot better than these other teams who haven't played anybody.
Right. And that's what we've talked about. We talked about at the beginning of the year how Georgia's schedule is going to hurt them. And them not playing good against Missouri is their strength of schedule. Because it's already not good, you know. I mean, it's like 95th in the country. And they certainly don't need Kentucky to drop another game from here and there because that's going to be one of their big-time road wins.
Yeah, facts.
And Tennessee, if you don't, play better than that, you can't afford to lose the regular season game. You just can't. Not with your schedule because then you run the risk of having to beat Alabama. And you never want to have to beat Alabama to get the playoff. You just don't. You don't. You don't want to do that. And, I mean, because odds are it's not going to go great for you. But, I mean, I think Georgia's still really good. I'm not dissing them at all. And Georgia fans, there's nothing to worry about. You're really good. I think there's a lot of kinks to work out. I do think the freshman needs a lot more time. I mean, I think the freshman running back, what's his name? Branson Robinson, needs more reps. I think that there's a lot of – now, O-line can be changed. O-line can be moved – I mean, you can move the tackle to guard and the center to tackle and the guard to center, and you can have a brand new O-line.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading a lot of Georgia fans and a lot of Georgia insiders that are very worried about this offensive line because, like they've said, I've read this. I'm not coming up with it. They've said Missouri D-line was okay, but it's not the best D-line you're going to see.
No.
And that's what they're worried about. And Kent State's D-line had a decent day against them, you know? So, like, that's what they're worried about the most. And already not having the type of running backs you've had before, like Nick Chubb, heck, Sony Michel. Last year, Zeus. I mean, even Zeus. Zeus was lesser than Nick Chubb, but he was better than Kendall Milton.
Way better.
Way better. So already not having the running backs you have had.
And to say that, I don't want to slander Kendall Milton.
No.
The guy gets 8 carries against Missouri, 9 against Kent State, 10 against South Carolina. Like, these are blowout games, but like the Missouri game, why is the guy getting 8 carries? He ran for 60 yards on those 8 carries. Like, that's really solid.
Right, and I think
here's my issue. I think we need one guy to get in a groove and ride him for a majority of the game.
Right.
Like, I don't mind, having a 2-man backfield. I'm cool with that. Have your guy who is going to get 15 carries, have your guy you throw the passes to, which is Kenny McIntosh. He's a great pass catcher. Kendall Milton is also a great pass catcher, but you need a guy dedicated for running, dedicated.
Right. Georgia's offense isn't built around bad pass catchers.
No, they're not. Kenny McIntosh has over 200 receiving yards out the backfield.
And that's fine, but let's get him into space on run plays.
The guy has more receiving yards than rushing yards, and he's running back.
I think he's better than Kendall Milton.
At catching the ball, I would say he is.
I think he's a more elusive and explosive runner than Kendall Milton. I think Kendall Milton is very stocky and not as fast. So I think you're going to – with the O-line problems, you need a guy that can make people miss. You do. I mean, you just do. And Clemson does that, like you said, the not riding one back. I like one guy getting off. And Shipley, for the most part, gets most of the
I was going to say, Shipley gets like 15. He hits a different level. Like, did he not push the ball like 20 times or like carried the ball like 20 times in a Wake Forest game?
Maybe. Yeah, he did, I think. But like they have the other 2 running backs, Maffa and Pace, that play a good bit too. But they all have different roles. And what I'm seeing at Georgia is they all have the same role. They're all the same running back. And that's where the problem lies at.
Exactly.
So I think it's very fixable. I don't think there's anything that's not fixed. Georgia's not fixing to go off the rails. They're just not. I mean, they're too well of a program. They're too well built. I do think the defense has not been as dominant the past 2 weeks, obviously, but they have been on the field a lot more than they were the last 3 weeks before that.
Right.
So I think they're working out some kinks there. It's early, man. It's almost halfway through, but it is early in SEC play. Auburn will not give you a fit. I don't know who's Vandy next week. You have 2 weeks to get ready, but after that, you got Tennessee and Kentucky coming up, and I hope you have it figured out by then. I don't think they're no world beaters, but I do think they're decent competition that if you don't play well enough, you can get beat.
I agree.
But I mean, and like, let's talk about Alabama for a little bit. Alabama, they look good, but they haven't played anybody. Arkansas was a good game.
I can't really give them, I don't know. They have not played anybody besides like that, the Arkansas team. I guess the main thing is they haven't looked bad, really.
Texas, they did not look good that day.
Texas game, they looked, but
they do have some problems on offense, I think. They
do, yeah. They're receiving.
It's bad.
Bryce Young himself hasn't looked great, and then the receivers just they're not that good. They're not really there. I
agree. Ohio State, you look really good right now. I think you're probably the best looking team. But that being said, your top 10 Notre Dame win was not a top 10 win. And you've played Toledo, Rutgers, Arkansas State, and Wisconsin since. They've all combined for about 30 losses combined. So and the Big Ten is a lot weaker than thought they were. Because you got Ohio State and Michigan, and that's it.
Yeah, they have.
And the Pac-12 has kind of been better.
The Pac-12 has been better.
So, I mean, and I think the ACC's been better. I think the SEC's been better. And I mean, the Big 12, I think, has been better. So I really think the Big 10 may be the worst Power 5 conference this year. Not with that being said, I do think that the Big 10 would probably, and head-to-head, would probably beat the Pac-12. But right now, based off how the teams look. But I guess we need to move into the performers of the week.
Oh, right.
Who do you have?
I'm running it back.
He's running it back. Let's hear it. Adrian Martinez back-to-back week.
Because like the guy is doing stuff that we haven't really seen since the Heisman winner, Lamar Jackson. This week, yeah, he didn't go through the air as much. Only 116 yards, and
he didn't have to.
He didn't have to. He didn't really need to. They pounded the rock. His teammate Deuce Vaughn had 170 yards himself. Adrian Martinez had 171 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground again.
That being said, I am glad to see that tandem look good together because they can be tough.
They could. That's a scary read option.
That is. And I'm going to tell you what. Syracuse's is not bad either. Schrader's big body with Sean Tucker's not bad.
That's true.
So, I mean, there's a lot of good tandems in the country. And, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch this come down to the wire. You know who my player of the week is. I told you about it already. Yeah. How can you not go this way? Max Duggan, 302 yards passing, 116 yards rushing on 5 carries.
That is crazy.
5 carries at quarterback. He had 5 total touchdowns. And let me just try to do a little quick math here. 418 yards total by himself.
Yeah, he went crazy.
He went ballistic. Who did we talk about? We mentioned
East Carolina. I was just about to get to it. East Carolina. Sorry, I'm just gonna pull those up. Their stats. East Carolina. Holton Ahlers, quarterback, 464 yards and 6 touchdowns, and his top receiver C.J. Johnson, 7 catches, 197 yards, and 4 TDs in the win over South Florida. So, you want to talk about numbers? There's your numbers.
There's your numbers. Good job, ECU. Team of the week for me is TCU. Congratulations. You looked amazing. You showed you were not a fraudulent. Because remember, I picked Colorado over them. That's one thing we need to talk about before we go off. Head coaches that are gone.
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah,
there's a lot. Colorado's coach is gone. I can't remember his name. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech is gone. Paul Chryst at Wisconsin is gone.
That was a crazy one.
That is crazy because he has been very successful.
They've been pretty good. Like, they're having a down year now, but
they put his side by side with Jim Who's at Michigan? Jim or John? It's John, right?
I think so.
John Harbaugh.
I think it's John, because Jim is with the Ravens.
Right. Paul Chryst has been better. Arguably, based off he had a better tenure at Wisconsin than Harbaugh had at Michigan, and he went 5. Paul Chryst went 5-1 in bowl games. Are you sure you want to give that up, Wisconsin? Because we know you're in that conference. You're probably not going to be a playoff team because you have Ohio State there every year and Michigan too. So, do you really want to give up winning a bowl game every single year? Because he could do it.
I guess they don't care.
That was a very weird fire to me. But I'm interested to see who takes this Wisconsin job because I feel like this Wisconsin job is a lot more popular than you would think.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a successful team.
I would
And I
love
think
to see Urban Meyer.
they definitely, when it comes to like offensive, defensive line, like they probably have some of the most talent.
They do, and you can recruit there. You can recruit because you're in the Big Ten. Offense and defensive line want to come there.
Right.
So I would love, love, love to see Urban Meyer go to Wisconsin, and I would not be surprised if they go after him.
I don't see why they wouldn't. They have no reason not to.
Right, and I think he wants to come back to college football. I would love to see him at Wisconsin against Ohio State Ryan Day because it's kind of like he built Ohio State back up, left
Mhm.
them with Ryan Day, and then you have that would be fun. Georgia Tech, this is not going to happen, but it would be really cool to see Deion Sanders go there.
That would be
The
cool.
whole Atlanta, he could really recruit in Atlanta.
Maybe
It,
after his son leaves, he might
do
leave
what?
Jackson State on you.
Yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
yeah.
which he would bring his son with him. He would definitely do that.
Oh, he could do that too. I was gonna say like after his son like graduates.
He's a sophomore, I think, so or junior. But I think he would definitely bring him with him. I don't think there's any chance that happens. I don't think Dion's that dumb to leave what he's building right now and how good he has it made down there because he can really do what he wants. And
Exactly.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about Georgia Tech. We've seen it over time. They're not going to change their academic standards. They care too much. So Dion's not going to be able to recruit like he wants to in Atlanta with the academic standards at Georgia Tech, and I think that's a big reason he won't go there.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's. I feel like that's like not a big point that like it gets overlooked is like the academic side. Like a lot of these guys at these at these bigger schools, it's not as big of a deal because these are high level like recruits already. Like these guys are nationally like we know them, but in high school.
Right.
A
And
lot of
they're
the Jackson State guys, I've never heard of them.
right.
But like Travis Hunter, is he at Jackson State or is he getting recruited?
He's at Jackson State.
Yeah, like he's one, and then his son. But other than that, I don't know anybody else.
Right. And like, I don't know. It's just like certain colleges, like Georgia Tech's just, they've shown they're not going to change who they are as a university. And I think the academic side of things goes unnoticed because we forget sometimes that these are colleges and we tend to think that, man, they just play football. No, the kids go to school here. So, and I think that's a big thing for Georgia Tech. And I just don't think they're willing, and I don't think they're willing to pay him. He's an athlete. He was an athlete, former athlete, so he's going to want the bag.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're not going to be willing to pay him that. It's going to be interesting to see who Georgia Tech gets. I feel like Georgia Tech just needs to go back to the triple option, though, man. That's when they were most successful. And here's why. Because they have a bunch of brilliant kids because, like we talked about, the academic standards. So they're able to trick you.
And I feel like another thing, the guys that are there now were brought in. Like a lot of those main guys were brought in. Like Jeff Sims, he was brought in during that time. Like he was a freshman when they were running the triple option still, if I'm not mistaken.
He was.
I want to say, what is he? He's not a senior yet.
He may be. Is
he a junior?
He's an upperclassman. I'm not sure. I'll look. Hang on. I think Jeff Sims is really talented, and I think that's why they beat Pitt. He's 20, so
he's a sophomore. Maybe not. I'm probably redshirt sophomore.
Anyway, I think their future can be bright at Georgia Tech, and I think it can be even brighter at Wisconsin And Colorado, that whole state's going to be set on fire. I mean, 0-5 at both universities.
That's got to be a record for both.
0-10 so far.
Like,
Let's
when
see
is
how
the
long.
last
We should have a tracker on that every week in the top left corner up there of the stream. How many losses can they get combined? If they make it 24, I swear that would be. Well, they can't. They play each other, but somebody's got to win.
they may get taken off the airwaves if we do that. Colorado might
Yeah.
start a riot on us, get us canceled.
Go Buffs always. Anyway, so we will. I don't know when we'll do the NFL. It may be Saturday at some point, but Saturday we're still good for Saturday morning on college football, right?
Yeah, we're good.
We will be having a college football. We missed it last week, but we will be having a college football pregame show. It'll be anytime before 12, so just look for the notification because obviously the games start at 12. So look for that and follow on the socials, Out of Bounds Pods. And that's a wrap for me. Go watch some college football this weekend. Lose all your money again. That's basically what I got to say.
That's a weekly routine.
Weekly routine.